Good morning, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. Last night I tried to do a video and that whole two-topic thing got me, and we ended up with like 25 minutes unedited, single take, so I'm going to redo this for you this morning. The two topics were Donald Trump and the unmentionable of the pandemic, which has a bunch of unmentionable things attached. Let's do that one first, just because it's so unmentionable. A couple days ago there was a press conference, and the press conference was from some frontline doctors, hosted by a congressman. I believe at this point you're not allowed to say the name of any of the doctors or the congressman or anything that they were talking about directly, or YouTube will censor you. In fact, one YouTuber, Matt Christensen, had his video removed flat out because he mentioned certain words and didn't blur out and distort and bleep out his reporting on the event. So this is a funny thing, alright? We have an event, press conference, streamed live, 45 minutes, and the whole thing was taken down, off the internet. Like, they tried as hard as they could to get it off the internet completely. It's not searchable, it's underground. There's a thing called samizdat, or samizdat, whatever, depends on your accent. Samizdat is it's a Russian word for an underground publishing that you used to find in the Soviet Union. It was a way to disseminate information in the Soviet era. You would handwrite or type zines, informational flyers, news, whatever, and you would send it over fax, or you would read it to other people who would type it dictation and then distribute it, or use mimeograph machines, or steal time on the Xerox, the state party Xerox. And I live in a world where the internet, this huge, massive, vast internet, is available, and I'm resorting to samizdat techniques online to get information. That triggers every conspiracy button that a rational person has. There's got to be something going on. And that's a problem. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. It's not so much just the information itself. Yes, there was a press conference. They talked about a drug that you can't mention, which has been used in the past to treat viruses as a prophylactic and as an actual treatment. And the WHO and the NIH are aware of this, and it's on their list, except now it's not, because it was used for a similar corona family virus previously, but this one you can't because I guess the president advocated for it. Like, literally, that's the reason. Okay, you have studies that show it's great. You have studies that show it's not so great. Not bad, horrible, but just not so great. You know, that's the worst you can say. There was a study that showed that if you give toxic doses to people, you get toxic effects. I believe that is something that was said roughly that way in the press conference. And yeah, I went looking for the study, and yeah, it was retracted, and yeah, it was a bad study, and yeah, that was like shitty science. So, you know, this is a drug that's over the counter in much of the world, and so why aren't we allowed to actually talk about it? Why aren't we allowed to actually have discussions, research, hear about it? Doctors are prescribing it. Now, we know from the media that the doctors who do prescribe it are quacks and horrible and awful people and know nothing, except that they seem to be having good results, and they seem to be able to quote studies that say that it works for the certain particular illness that we're dealing with, which I probably can't name either. So we have an unnamed drug that is used in unnamed ways. You know, I looked up the dosage and the treatment, and we're talking really small. Really small. You know, it's used as an autoimmune drug, and you'll have people who will take a small pill twice a day for autoimmune purposes. And we're talking way less than that for prophylactic purposes. So, you know, and it's safe. Okay, we do use this. We use this for autoimmune issues. We use this as an anti-parasitic drug because it's a malaria drug, and malaria is not a virus. I mean, no one even is willing to be educated on what's actually going on, and then the information is censored. You literally can't talk about a drug that's in common use for 3 purposes, being used for one of those purposes for a disease that you can't mention, and it's backed up with information on a website that has been taken down and cannot be referenced because it's bad think, or wrong think, or because the media hates the president. Like, I really can't figure out what's going on here. This is the conspiracy buttons, all right? Are we dealing with a New World Order conspiracy? Because here's the alternative, okay? We have something that we know has some effect. It's possibly less effective than most psychiatric medications with less harmful side effects. It's probably, and I've done some research, much more effective than most psychiatric medications with no related bad side effects. Like, it's almost as safe as Tylenol. Tylenol's not particularly safe in high doses, but just hear me out here, all right? And I'm not allowed to talk about it, hear about it, get it, discuss it with my doctor. Are we dealing with New World Order conspiracy, or are we actually dealing with a media and a Democratic Party? Because they're tied together in this. The opposition to this is very much politically aligned, partisan, Democrats, and media. Do these people actually hate Donald Trump enough that they're willing to potentially kill hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people in the United States and around the world in a giant Tuskegee experiment because they hate the president? Like, I'm not seeing a whole lot of other answers here, okay? You can say, the information is bad and therefore it's right to take it down and no one should see it, but no. That's not how it works, okay? Something's wrong, you know? And it's not necessarily that the information itself, we have a debate, you know? There was one person in this press conference who was a very large, tall, well-built, muscular, attractive, black male doctor who I believe was gay. He talked about that. And so you've got big, giant, well-spoken, highly educated UCLA doctor, gay black dude, who's not being mentioned by the media. All they care about is that they can pull their racist, misogynist card. This is the media. This is the left using racism and sexism to scream about the crazy African witch doctor lady, right? Like, that's all they will report on. They don't report on the psychologist who's talking about the suicide hotlines being overwhelmed, busy signals on suicide hotlines. Won't talk about the pediatrician who's like, hey, you know, maybe we should talk about kids going back to school, but the California Teachers Union only wants to talk about defunding police. That's the requirement for kids to go back to school. And I'm like, has nothing to do with and removing school choice. That's also a requirement. Like, no charters, like getting rid of the existing charter schools. What? Okay. Large, black, gay dude, doctor, well-spoken, extremely well-spoken. And he talks about how Black Lives Matter, gay pride, gay rights, these are moral issues. There is only one answer. He's like, there's only one acceptable answer, and that's civil liberties, that's freedom. Okay, equal treatment. He doesn't talk about special treatment or anything. It's a debate and everyone can have later. But that's his argument. And then he says, but this is medicine. This is a disease. This is research. It's not a moral question. There's no one answer that is only acceptable. We have to have our conversations, do our research, figure out what we're looking at. And that's not allowed. But the media won't report this guy. He doesn't exist. If you can find a copy of the 45-minute press conference, and you can get past the dead zombie Skeletor face of the one doctor who's leading it, granted, she's not terribly photogenic. Anyway, there's people there talking that you need to listen to. Like, you don't need to obey, you don't need to believe, but you need to listen to them because you don't know what's going on. And people are hell-bent on preventing you from knowing what's going on. Preventing you from knowing that there's an example. The tech companies operating in trust, okay? This is the thing. They're operating as a trust, as an organized group, corporate group, multiple corporations with media to suppress and control information. You know, they want only the networks to be seen, only the networks to get views, only the approved information to get out. They're willing to censor and remove information, actively remove. And they're operating in trust. They're operating as a trust. This is an important distinction and factor here, and I have a hard time believing it's just hatred of Trump. That people actually hate Donald Trump so much that they're willing to see their family members potentially die because they can't access a particular drug. Of course, they won't see it that way. They'll blame some random person in the Southeast for not wearing a mask. That'll be their identifier. But I don't get it. Something's wrong with this picture. It pushes the conspiracy buttons because it's pretty bad. Anyway, you should probably go try to educate yourself just a little bit and figure out what's going on. I don't know if you can do anything about it. But, you know, I'm going to go back out and film today, and more people waiting in line at the DMV, 6 feet apart, wearing masks, on the concrete, in 105-degree heat, for hours and hours and hours, and you can't bring them a chair because it's not sanitized. Just remember, they're willing to do that to you, and they're not willing to allow you to discuss medications. Stay sideways and maybe a little irritated, and have a good day.